Welcome to episode 25 of Storm the Norm, the fortnightly podcast where we pick up norms that come in the way of businesses succeeding in a disruptive world. I am Narayan.
And I'm Anisha Motwani.
Storm the Norm is brought to you in association with Grant Thornton Bharat and includes GT Insights, a special capsule from a GT expert. On to today's episode now. Anisha, there's a bit of irony in what I'm about to say, so humor me, okay?
Okay, Narayan, permission granted.
Thank you. So here's the thing. Before video was a thing, before even the written word was a thing, we have evolved for millennia as oral cultures. Forget the human species. Audio is how pretty much all species of animals communicate, whether at frequencies that the human ear can detect unaided or not. Whales use it, so do bats. Birds use it, so do bees. And audible sound by itself is the standard by which we've even measured speed. Supersonic means faster than the speed of sound. And here's the ironical bit. It's not lost on me that what we're doing here is using audio for our podcast. And yet...
I knew there was a yet coming, Narayan.
and I don't want to disappoint you. So, and yet, Anisha, when you look at it from a business point of view, and myopic as that may sound, but hey, we are a business podcast. When you look at it from a business point of view, I can't help think audio has always been and continues to be a poor cousin to video. And I dare say, even to the written word. I mean, we've heard of movie czars and newspaper czars, but have you ever heard of a radio czar?
True. I don't think Prashant should be hearing this. I am assuming he's the radio czar for India.
But look, think about it. Have you heard of an equivalent of Reed Hastings or Netflix for audio? Like even the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, put his bets on video with Amazon Prime and publishing the written word.
True.
And for all the hype that the iPod got when Steve Jobs first introduced it, it's seen as a bit of a quaint anachronism now. And Apple is known more for its phone and computing devices. And I haven't even seen a single audio unicorn anywhere in the world.
You're right, Narayan. We are actually living in a visually saturated world with 10,000 ads popping at us daily and more than 8,000 videos being uploaded to YouTube every minute. And not to forget the innumerous OTT channels, that the content that we consume there. We know that a picture is worth 1,000 words and that video content is king. And yet it's the audio formats where real innovation has happened.
Exactly, Anisha.
And besides the innovative formats, there are other psychological reasons that make the radio such an enduring medium for the future. And it always has been. We know that listening to audio doesn't require full attention, like visual forms of media. It's a more passive form of viewing, the video. Audio is designed to be listened to on the go, whether driving, running, doing dishes, making it the perfect medium for the culture that's obsessed with multitasking. And audio also helps you use your imagination in many ways and creates a social experience. When you're hearing a story, when you're hearing a voice, having access to the tones and nuances as you listen to it, you start visualizing what is being said, taking you in a world of your own creation. So that helps you use your imagination in different ways. Whereas in video, you are just passive viewer.
Yeah, and then there are the definitive trends too. The shift of audio consumption from radio to mobile streaming has accelerated the listening time of audio by a whopping 70% in the last 5 years, according to the latest share of ear report from Edison in the US. And podcasts, a hot trend, but it's already getting replaced by voice control games and 8D music. The rise of smart speakers, connected cars, and hearable devices are other key drivers of audio consumption. Asking voice assistants to play music is consistently ranked among the top requests that smart speaker users make. And voice-based conversational interfaces, they will play a big role in the future of audio content discovery and listener behavior.
I mean, I can tell you with experience, since the time I got an Alexa at home, I feel that there is more conversation happening with Alexa, than with the person in the room. So that's so true. And yet, despite the popularity and the format innovations, one area where audio has always lagged is the ability to monetize at scale. The audience reach of this medium has far outpaced its monetization. And that's why I guess you don't see a radio czar.
Yeah. So yeah, hammer, meet nail on the head. I know we've been using a lot of and yets today, Nisha, but this is the one that most intrigues me. Why is it that a medium that is so culturally ingrained, that fosters such tremendous innovation in content and technology, that allows for sensorial engagement as well as distraction, that goes beyond problems of literacy and education, why is such a fantastic medium still a poor cousin to video, even in the digital and post-digital age?
All great questions, Narayan, as always. And I think this is a good time to bring in our expert for the day, Prashant Pandey, CEO of Radio Mirchi. Prashant isn't just a seasoned professional in the radio business, but is perhaps best positioned to storming today's norm about audio being a poor cousin to video. Prashant, it's a pleasure to have you here on this episode of Storm the Norm.
Thank you.
The norm that we want to storm with you today, Prashant, is audio has always been a poor cousin of video, whether in the analog age or in the digital age. What's your take on the norm?
Well, obviously, as you would guess, I completely disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with is not some parochial reason which says that, because we do so much work on the audio side, we have to defend it. But simply because I think most people make this mistake that they kind of compare two things on possibly a wrong variable. Mm-hmm. Like when you say that it's a poorer cousin or whatever, what you basically mean is that, hey, audio products make lesser revenues compared to video products. Now that's an obvious, it's a given. Mm-hmm. And then, it's a non-starter if that was the case. So look at the way I would like to frame this comparison really is in terms of the amount of time you spend with a particular medium. And if you were to look at it in that way, then somehow the data indicates in India that, I think most people spend maybe, 15 or 20 minutes on reading the newspaper and of course, then when they hit office or, when they, in the rest of the day, they may be possibly spending another half an hour or an hour reading various kinds of documents in their life. Let's put it like that they spend about an hour on the textual format overall. Mm-hmm. If it comes to video, we know for a fact that the television viewership is approximately, I think, 3 hours a day. Now, here's another way to look at it. Mm-hmm. That while video is, of course, the big daddy in terms of the revenue pie, remember that the video is also split, I think, like into 1,000 fragments because there are just like so many different operators and players in that space, right? So from an individual company's point of view, if you look at it from a business point of view, the biggest video company in this country, let's take it to be Star TV or something, I don't know, must be about 7,000, 8,000 crore rupees. The biggest print company, assuming it is Times of India, must be, I don't know, about 8,000 crore rupees. And the biggest radio company, which is Mirchi, would be about 600 crore rupees, right? So it's maybe a 10th. It's not like it is 100th of the video companies or whatever. So what happens is that while the audio revenue piece is limited, it's divided amongst fewer number of players. So I don't agree with this basic norm that you set out that, the audio medium is a poorer cousin of anybody at all. It's not at all true.
Oh, that's an interesting take about the time, the share of ear that radio as a medium gets of listeners. Okay, let's move to your medium. You've been part of the radio world for such a long time. Why has radio not been the one leading the change on storming this norm? What has caused it to be late to take to digital audio innovations?
No, actually, here's the thing I wanted to clarify again, that it depends on how you look at it, So when you talk about digital, and, we are often tend to think about digital as being, like some different animal entirely. But what is digital actually? It's nothing but a distribution platform. It's one of the ways of getting to what you want, right? So what we have been doing, and I do agree that generally radio players have been slow to kind of transform. We use the word transform in my company, but it's pretty much storm the norm as you call it. While radio companies in general have been slow, but in particular, Mirchi has been very, very, let's say, proactive. We could have done better, of course, but we've been very proactive in terms of doing a lot more than just radio. But here is the difference between what we chose for ourselves and the way you are kind of framing this discussion. So let me elaborate on that. So almost 10 years ago, actually even earlier, maybe about 12, 13 years ago, what we realized is that, as a bunch of people who work in this company, we could do so much more than just do, audio creatives, right? We were doing radio shows, we were creating funnies on the radio. We were creating information capsules on the radio. We were doing a lot of stuff on the radio and using music as a template wherever required. But we just realized that as a bunch of people, there was so much more we could do. That's one thing. The second thing we also realized is that the brand Mirchi, actually started standing for something beyond radio or just beyond music.
I will endorse that. You're part of the book Storm the Norm, and that was one of the reasons we selected Mirchi to be part of that lot of
precisely. And when we did the research, we found that basically Mirchi started becoming known as a kind of a lifestyle brand. It became a representative of the youth. It became a representative of the slightly irreverent attitude towards taboo subjects and all of those kind of things. So we realized that we had a brand which could actually go way beyond radio or audio, right? Yeah. And what we chose to do 10, 12 years ago is to actually diversify out of audio and do a lot of other stuff, which we could do in a very good way, given our brand and the kind of people we had. So we started creating IPs on ground. And so the Mirchi Music Award, for instance, was created 13 years ago, right? And then we went on to create 2 or 3, we created something called the Mirchi Cover Star. We created the Mirchi Top 20. These are all music related, but, really on ground IPs. Then we took some of these IPs to television. So the ones that I just named have all migrated to television. So we created IPs on television. Then we look at the revenue side of what we did. So we said, listen, why make revenues only from the radio advertising, right? Because that's one piece, but there is so much more you can do. So we, of course, made revenues from all these IPs I named you. But we also changed the entire way in which we approach the media interface with clients. So, we started doing is and think about it, you've been a marketer all your life, you know it, right? I mean, as a marketer, you get no joy in buying media. I mean, your job is not to buy media. Your job is to get solutions, right? You want to get answers to your problem. Every client has got so many problems. And the problems are all unique. You have a different problem in Tamil Nadu, a different problem in Delhi. And, but look at how it is. Most marketing guys are so lazy. They just love to buy television and, everything's over and done.
True.
Or, they just buy marketing advertising agencies have become so sloppy over the years. Everything has become like a very cookie cutter kind of a thing, right?
I can relate to that, yes.
So, what we said is that, listen, let's go and talk to our clients and listen to them. What are the problems that they're saying, right? And then can we design an answer to that problem? And that answer may or may not have radio in it.
Understand.
And, then as things evolved over the last 10 years, we realized that we can't be doing generic solutions, right? But we came to a nice turf, a nice place where we saw a lot of inherent strengths in our offering to clients. And what was this turf? This turf is what we call hyper-local solutions, right? So I'll give an example. Suppose we have a client in Rajkot, right? Now, to the Rajkot client today, we not only give radio, but we have the capability to give an on-ground activation idea in that town. We have the wherewithal to do it. We have got local influencers on our roles and who are off our roles, but who work with us. We've got all the local social media assets available to tap. We have done tie-ups with local newspapers that we can release material in. We can do local PR. So there is so much that we can do in Rajkot that actually no one else, I dare say, in this country, would be doing for clients. So to come back to the question that you started off with, we stormed the radio norm 10, 12 years back. But what we did is, we also stormed out of the audio segment in that process. So we, like I told you, went to IPs, we went to video through television, we went to solutions in giving, in generating revenues. And then finally, when digital became bigger, we started doing a lot of content on YouTube. And just to give an example, I think it's not often known, but we get 50 million listeners on radio. But today we get more than 50 million consumers on YouTube alone.
Oh, wow.
And just imagine that, and there's very little overlap, I can tell you. So, technically, we have grown our reach from 50 million to 100 million and purely on video. Now, coming back to where you started off with, yes, all of us have been slow on expanding and growing the audio piece and storming the norm in that sense.
No, see, something very interesting you said, that you stormed the norm not within the audio medium, but outside of audio medium, but in a manner where you're starting with a client problem or the client business need, and you are giving them a holistic solution. You could be an event agency, you could be a radio, you could have your print guys associated, you could have on-ground things that are happening. But you always start with the client's problem statement or the business need, and you give a holistic integrated solution to a client. But when it comes to the revenues, we are still 1/10 of what the larger medium is. So what do you see your medium doing that could actually give you the scale in revenues?
Yes, very good question, Anisha. And it's a question that we debate at the board quite often in my company. Because, see, like I mentioned to you, we kind of moved into the video medium many, many years ago, right? When we made the Mitch Music Awards and took it to television, or all the other shows I named, they're all on television, right? So we moved, we created content. And then on YouTube, for instance, I mentioned to you, so we today have 11 channels and 14 million subscribers. We did 750 million views on YouTube. So there's a lot that we've done on video. But here is the difference. The difference is that we, in our imagination, were a content company at heart. And therefore, we were making content in all mediums, but we were hosting this content on public platforms, right? So we were hosting it on YouTube. We did more than 500 million audio streams on Gaana. We were available on several airlines in the form of our shows running over there, video shows, audio shows, etc., running on various playlists, etc., on different airlines. So we did a lot, and actually all of this non-radio components contributed 1/3 to my revenues. But you're right. At the end of the day, that's still not the biggest opportunity. And because, if you're a content company, then, at the end of the day, content will only get you so much revenue. And even though content is what drives other platforms, but when you look back upon it, just think about it, that you are making the content, but you're driving somebody else's business, which is the platform's business. In fact, all of YouTube has been built by content which others have put on it. And they're just a technology company which is, taking 30% or 40% of all the revenues that get generated, by actually not even having to bother about the content. So we realized this, and this is discussed, like I told you, several times at the board. And to that extent, you're right that all of us have been in the radio business, have been very, very, well, I don't know, lethargic, but very late in kind of tapping the digital opportunity. So we are getting into our own platform very soon. In another 3 months' time, we are launching our own app and web portals, starting with 1,000 hours of podcast content. But we are focusing on doing stories, because we want to stay within, we want to stay within entertainment to the extent possible. Or let's say we want to
stay core to the brand.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'll tell you what has happened because we didn't have our own platform. It's not that we have lost out on the expertise, or, we've kind of lost the art of doing content or whatever. No, we have actually lost touch with our user. So on YouTube, I may get 50 million people, but I don't know who these people are, right? So I'm not owning the customer. And on radio, anyway, you were never owning the customer, because the research is so, in that sense, very, old fashioned. So the big opportunity that digital provides, which is to actually know your customers, track your customer across the life journey of a customer, all that piece has been missing. The pandemic also showed one other thing, that when all inventory sales of all other mediums was failing, whether it was radio, print, outdoor, and even television momentarily, the digital medium was growing rapidly, and therefore digital inventory was still selling really well, right? So all digital companies grew in last year despite the pandemic. So we obviously lost out on a revenue opportunity during the pandemic, and I think our attempt now is to correct that. Now we will begin with the podcast thing, and we will of course deep dive into it, and we hope to get to 10,000 hours of content based and so on and so forth. But we are not giving up on video or on text, because we don't imagine ourselves as an audio. We imagine ourselves as an entertainment company, as boredom busting guys who have done 20 years of audio, but we've also done a lot of video, and we've also done a lot of text, and we're bringing all of it under our app that we are going to launch, like I told you, in 3 months' time.
That's awesome, Prashant, because what I hear you say is that you are not just going to get to know your customers. You're going to tap into the talent of this whole long tail of content creators in this whole economy. Today, you are going to get access to all of them through your podcast and digital channel. And you're not the only ones, where I've always seen that an incumbent company is always a little late in getting into
Yes.
innovations in their own category. You see mutual funds, say, for example, typically should have been the domain of banks, but they had to be a separate company to start mutual funds. Or,
Right.
for example, Airbnb. Hotels were best placed to start an Airbnb business, but that always comes from outside.
Correct.
So because
Absolutely.
typically, we're so engrossed in our own business and the nitty-gritties and nuances of running that sometimes
Correct.
the lateral thinking is always left for the outsiders and the
Exactly.
newcomers. But better late than never.
Yeah, and you tend to just get so pulled down in ops, and you sometimes do. So, a good thing today is that across my group, and not just in Mirchi, but across the Times India group, there is so much futuristic thinking happening now. And all of today morning, before you called, I was doing research on NFTs, and we are making a big splash in NFTs, and we don't want to be behind this time on anything. So you'll see that the whole Times of India group will make a splash on NFTs very soon. And Mirchi has a lot of good content that we believe we can convert to NFTs. So insiders always tend to get bogged down, and there has to be a institutional mechanism. And what you explained, what you were telling me earlier about, a board subcommittee on just brands or on, let's say, on strategy.
On storming the norms, because all this is actually just, questioning the norms and storming them early upfront.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much, Prashant. It's been such an insightful conversation. And
thanks a lot. It's always good to talk. And what happens is that when you talk with somebody like you who knows the subject so well, your own thoughts just become clearer.
Yeah.
So after this conversation, for instance, it's given me a few more ideas, even as I was speaking. And I think it's just terrific talking to you, Anisha.
Thank you, Prashant. So, Narayan, what did you take away from everything that Prashant said? My usual question.
Anisha, I think I was most intrigued by how Prashant would tackle the dichotomy between innovation and business success in the audio industry. More specifically, given the success of video on OTT, the question and answer I found most intriguing to explore further was how audio could build new avenues of success beyond advertiser-driven revenue, including but beyond. There's certainly a lot of food for thought from what Prashant spoke about.
Indeed, Narayan.
What about you, Anisha? How would you storm this norm? What hacks do you have for our audience?
Narayan, I had initially been tempted to explore hacks around innovation in audio. But as we've so far seen, I think it's far more critical we look at hacks around business success for audio. And I was doing a lot of reading. And in that context, a couple of good articles by Richard Yao of IPG gave me food for the 5 hacks that I have here to share today.
I'm all ears, and pun unintended, but we're talking about audio here.
I have your share of ear.
All right, I'm all ears again.
Here you go, Narayan. So I think the first one is about overcoming the hurdle of niche to mass bottleneck. Trying to fit the ad-supported model into the new audio formats would run the risk of suppressing or sidestepping the fundamentally different ways today's UGC-dominant audio formats operate. For the past decade, a lack of centralized, standardized ad network has prevented popular audio formats like podcast, etc., from breaking out as a must-have advertising channel for most advertisers.
But now, of course, large podcast channels like Spotify are in a unique position to properly monetize the space by developing new ad tools and platforms, which can make it easier for the long tail end of podcast creators to monetize their content, including through automated programmatic ads.
Exactly. With deep pockets, podcast companies like Spotify have the wherewithal to actually create innovation in the monetization space for audio. And Spotify recently launched Spotify Audience Network, which will combine all of its music and podcast ad inventory and allow brand marketers to run targeted digital audio ads at scale, similar to how buying banner ads or search ads on Facebook and Google work. Investing in new products like these is what will help this medium monetize at scale.
Okay, so a key to scaling is finding ways to measure what matters.
Absolutely. And here's my second hack. Customize revenue models to tap into the rise of social audio. The rise of social audio led by Clubhouse has simultaneously drawn attention to its uncertain path towards monetization.
Yep.
Since then, the space continues to develop rapidly with the rollout and possibly by now the fading of Twitter Spaces and a clone product from Facebook that is expected soon. And like I said in the beginning, Richard Yao makes a very interesting observation about this medium. He says, ironically, the key distinction that differentiates social audio from other audio formats is also a big obstacle for social audio platforms to monetize. There is an inherent conflict between scale and content moderation that is true for all user-generated content platforms, but specially enhanced for social audio due to its live format. In order to develop a sustainable business model, Clubhouse needs to expand its communities to scale up.
And yet, opening up to a wider audience inevitably puts more pressure on content moderation, which could lead to potential brand safety concerns.
Exactly. And although the company has promised to address these issues, it still has a long way to go to solve this central conflict before it can become a brand-friendly environment.
So if I may paraphrase this hack, what you're saying is scale, but with care.
True. And that's critical in this age of polarization and data safety. Capitalize on the hype, become a community platform for company launch announcements. And I'm again here referring to social audio. Companies can sponsor rooms to host product launches, gather live feedback, hand out cash prizes via cash apps, or do live customer researches for their new ideas. One company recently went live on Clubhouse after their latest quarterly financial reports for an open Q&A session with the Clubhouse crowd. Brands are constantly looking out for new platforms to get visibility and engagement. And social audio platforms are ripe to capitalize on the current hype and tap into this through several such guerrilla tactics.
Anisha, it strikes me that this is also a very authentic way for companies to engage with key stakeholders, to build trust and corporate reputation without having to only pursue branded advertising avenues.
Very true, Narayan, but it has to be done very carefully, because when you do it in open forums and in a democratic world, you have to be open to, in public, being the ability to take criticism, the ability to take bad along with the good. And let it all be in public domain. So that's the calibrated walk that brands need to undertake.
Absolutely.
But it is clearly an unexplored opportunity. Moving on to the next hack, do context-driven targeting, not profile-based targeting. Instead of going by the assumption of traditional audio media and imposing an ad-based model on all formats, it's important to consider other types of monetization that are emerging out of the creators' economy, such as direct subscription to creators, tipping for content, and microtransaction for an a la carte access to content.
Spot on, Anisha. The realities of the creator economy open up new possibilities and need a move away from old rules of the game.
Yeah, as consumers increasingly move away from public into more private digital environments, this reinvention of social context online will only help brands and advertisers. So we are able to use data about the context rather than the individual to target the messaging.
And podcasts and social audio may just be the natural format for context-driven targeting. And I'm not just making a plug for our own podcast here. Most podcasts have a clearly defined category of topic, and thanks to the scale of the creator economy, they cover a wide range of topics and provide a natural context for brands, so they can reach audiences that may be interested in them alone.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better, Narayan.
Thanks, Anisha. And what's your final hack for today?
It's perhaps the most intuitive and obvious one. Integrated and connected audio advertising. As connected cars and mobile streaming are becoming common, a lot of radio listeners are switching from options built into the dashboards to streaming audio content, be it music or podcast on their phone, either through mobile solutions like CarPlay and Android Auto, or simply via Bluetooth. Also, with voice-based conversational interfaces like Alexa I mentioned earlier, playing a big role in the future of audio content discovery and listener behavior, the future of audio advertising will have to become far more integrated and native. Imagine a radio ad break narrated by Google Assistant and with some pieces of contextual information or helpful tips, or a customized ad break presented by Alexa at your will?
Scary, but exciting and insightful as ever, Anisha. And that also gives us a good place to segue into a GT Insights module, where GT expert Vicky Behel tells us how business can specifically storm this norm. FYI, Vicky heads the sales transformation practice at GT Bharat and is best suited to give very practical advice to businesses on how to solve the monetization problem. Vicky, the last major successful transformation in audio was when Apple disrupted the music industry's revenue model. In today's scenario of social audio players such as Clubhouse, what advice would you give businesses to be commercially successful in transforming their revenue model?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And that's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting industry actually to analyze because it works very, very differently as compared to, any other business. And of course, in the last couple of decades, technology has disrupted a lot of businesses, the way we buy cabbage versus the way we buy our shoes, the consumption patterns and the channels of sale have really changed. But the music industry has actually seen the maximum disruption in terms of how the channel, consumption and production, all three of them have changed. So it's not just the channel that has changed in the music industry. Let me explain that in maybe 30 seconds. So now everyone can be an artist. Let's start from production. Like even if I have, I think that I have immense talent and I was an Indian Idol kind of a superstar potential, but I was never given that opportunity. I can go online and I can create my own room. I can create my own channel. I can start uploading my videos and I can share it to WhatsApp groups which have 200 people each on social media. I can take help from my friends to promote me. And if people actually like me, I can become a star overnight. That's possible, right? So Justin Bieber, for example, was discovered accidentally because someone saw one of his videos uploaded and then he believed that this is a star of tomorrow. So that's on the production side. So the channel has actually disrupted production. The channel itself got disrupted from record discs. Then came the Walkman, which took music with us wherever we go because it's portable. So we got the earphones, we got the Walkman, and wow, the consumption of the music changed in 1990s. And then came iTunes and MP3 era, where even that bulky Walkman became even more compact, and the consumption really shot up. So did piracy, and so did the revenue model getting disrupted because 95% of the people in 2009 or 2008, if I remember correctly, actually did not pay for the music that they consumed. So it went downwards. The overall industry revenue slipped, but then there were, of course, country level regulations and global regulations that came into picture, and people really started taking the right steps to save the industry. And the revenues have been on the upswing since 2010. I'm talking about global revenues in the music industry, and the production is increasing. The channels are still increasing as we speak. Like Clubhouse is becoming like a social music app and channel, and Spotify, of course, is the discovery app, and so is iTunes and a number of others. The telecom companies have their own music apps because they are selling it as a bundle, while the e-commerce players have their own music apps like Amazon Music, who are selling it as a bundle along with their subscription. So everyone wants music as a top-up to sell something else. So for the future of consumption, this has to be kept in mind, that where am I participating in this value chain? Because some cents per stream will come from somewhere or the other to you. So for example, an artist gets anywhere between 5 to 20 cents or something like that per stream, or actually I'm talking about a bit on the higher side, maybe 1/10 of that per stream on these kind of channels. So it's difficult to make money, but it's about the participation and the promotion on how you do it for the artist. And the more channels you are at, the more money are you going to make. So once this complex value chain of production, the way it is delivered, which is the channel, and also the way it is consumed and by whom is well understood, then the revenue models really come into picture. So you need to create a canvas and pinpoint at the right place of your profit pool participation. So I know it's pretty complex, but the way it is snowballing right now and the way it is going up, in the longer run, this industry is here to stay, and there's enough money to be made by everyone. Thank you.
A norm that is hugely relevant today, a deeply insightful and expert guest perspective, hacks to storm the norm, and a business perspective. That's a full plate to wrap up episode 25 of Storm the Norm, brought to you in association with GT Bharat.
As always, there are multiple places you can catch us on: Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, JioSaavn, by just searching for Storm the Norm, and on Saregama Karma 2.0 devices on channel 453.
This is Narayan.
And Anisha.
Signing off for now. We'll be back with a new episode shortly. Thank you and talk to you soon.
Thank you.